welcome. As tensions continue to escalate across the Middle East, something unusual is unfolding here in the Eastern Mediterranean, particularly in Cyprus, Europe's frontier with the Middle East. Warships, fighter jets, and air defense systems from multiple European countries are suddenly concentrating around the island, placing Cyprus at the center of a rapidly evolving geopolitical situation. To help us unpack the complexities around everything, I'm joined today by geopolitical analyst Dr. Yiannos Charalambides. Dr. Charalambides is a familiar voice in Cyprus and a regular presence across the country's television and radio media. Dr. Charalambides, thank you very much for joining me.
You are welcome. I hope that I can help you to analyze what the situation is around Cyprus and to see what is the true situation in order to avoid any panic, especially for the Cypriots and the others. Although we have a war, we are in a wartime. This is true.
Dr. Charalambides, many Westerners watching may not realize that in just the past few days, Cyprus has suddenly become surrounded by Western military forces, with multiple countries deploying naval and air assets to the region. Could you first walk our viewers through exactly which countries have deployed forces here and what they have sent, and then help us understand why Cyprus has suddenly become such a critical military hub?
The first thing that we should underline is that we did not intend to get involved in this conflict. This is the first point. It means that it is not, and it was not our choice, but because of the British military bases is a target for Iran. And this is the main issue that we should face. Although there are the British bases who are very famous about their defensive system, at the end of the day, one drone has been struck the British bases, and therefore what emerged on the surface was the following: that there is a defense problem. And the first thing that the Republic of Cyprus should do is to go and seek for aid from Greece. And then after also come to a communication with the United States of America, which the state that coordinate all the military operation. We have now in Cyprus 2 Greek frigates and of course 4 F-16 in order to protect the whole island. Of course, the European Union, I think that there is a huge disappointment in the Cypriots because of the European Union political attitude. Although we are under attack, and it was obvious that the first response was to activate Article 42, paragraph 7, which means that all the member states should come and support Cyprus by military forces. Such a joint decision never issued. And we should also underline the following: that we have the presidency of the European Union. So the solidarity promised to us never become true. This is the first. The second, so it is obvious to feel that we have been betrayed by your allies, because the key point is not to send us support, for example, the Spanish military forces or the French military forces, but we were waiting for the European Union as such to defend Cyprus.
At a crucial time, which you have just noted correctly, where Cyprus is presiding the Council of Europe from January until June 2026.
In a similar situation, when France was under attack in 2015, the European Union activated Article 42, paragraph 4. And the question, why now? why the European Union now did not behave with the same way. And this is something that show to the international community, not only to the Cypriots, that it is not credible. And maybe this is why President Putin and President Trump behave the European with, let's say, a skeptical way.
Yes. So for on my part, I'm just going to provide for context for the viewers which countries have sent what to Cyprus at the moment, for context for our viewers. So the British are going to be deploying HMS Dragon, which is an air defense destroyer, but it will take a week for it to come. And they're sending also two AW159 Wildcat helicopters. This doesn't include what they already have stationed in the bases, which we as Cypriots do not know. Greece, as you mentioned, has sent two brigades, Gimon and Psara. Gimon is considered amongst the most technologically advanced brigades currently in operation and service worldwide. They've sent 4 F-16 fighter jets, and they've also sent the C-130 aircraft transport. France is sending the Charles de Gaulle, and it will also deploy advanced anti-missile, anti-drone systems, and the French frigate Languedoc. Italy, through its defense minister Guido Crosetto, informed Parliament that they're deploying the FREMM class air defense frigate. And Spain announced on Thursday, March 5th, that it's deploying the ESPS Cristobal Colon to Cyprus, which specializes in air defense operations and will support Patriot missile interceptor systems currently deployed by Spain in Turkey. And the Netherlands are deploying the HNLMS Evertsen. The vessel will operate in support of the French aircraft carrier strike group centered on the Charles de Gaulle.
I feel the obligation to say something, that there would be a delay, because today, tomorrow, we get into the second phase of the war. And this delay is due to the European Union ineffective policy. There is no common policy. I remind you that when a drone appeared in the Polish air, all the European Union ran to support an F-16 patrol around. Now in Cyprus, we are under attack, but the Europeans, they did not come to support Cyprus, mainly to support Cyprus, but because they want to be next to the hegemonic power, the United States, bearing in mind what spoils they can take from the victory after the end of the war. This is the
Yes,
truth.
yes.
But
Dr.
however,
Charalambides, tell me, please.
what we can see now is a collective security system by the Western against Iran, and they want to minimize any cost can result from this war,
Yeah,
because we are not the main front. The main front is the Gulf, is the states of the Gulf
indeed.
there.
But I'd like us to also bring the attention to Cyprus, because things are rapidly developing here, and it's the opportunity for the Western viewers to know of what's happening here as a second front, because the way they are seeing it on their news media, they only think developments are happening in the first front, which you just mentioned. So
Yes, of course, but what the European prove is that it is not a frontier of the European Union, because they should react from the very first moment. Now everything is under the US control. So the first say, now and after the war, will not belong to Europe, but to the United States.
of course, that's very clear. It's clear,
So as
and it's
Cypriot, I think we should play more with the Americans and less with the Europeans. This is what reality is teaching us.
so. Speaking of the Americans, I wanted us to also be the platform where a lot of things are asked and cleared out. there are growing questions in Cyprus and around the region about whether the United States had already been using the Andreas Papandreou air base in Paphos and whether France had already been using the naval base at Mari prior to the events here. So do we know whether those bases were already being used, and if so, since when and under what arrangements?
For the time being, we have no any information saying that they have been used by the Americans because the aircraft carrier, one of the best in the world, Fort, is around the region. So there is no need for the moment for them to use the military bases of Andreas Papandreou. Anyhow, at the bases of Andreas Papandreou, there are four Greek F-16, and they are doing all the job that the Americans could do from using the bases.
We've seen the Greek F-16 fighter jets already intercept drones heading towards Cyprus, and British RAF F-35 fighter jets flew from their bases in Cyprus to Jordan to intercept drones that were also heading towards the island. Your comment, please.
This is an ordinary job for the British because this is their zone of influence from the political point of view, and because they are allies of the United States. The Greeks came here to cover any gap that we have realized that exists over Cyprus, and because the British failed to protect their own bases and at the same time the Cyprus as a state. We should underline for those who are hearing us that around the military bases, the British military bases in Cyprus, thousands of Cypriots are living. So there is a huge problem if the British cannot protect the area of the British military bases. So the Greek military forces did not arrive in Cyprus to protect the military bases, the British military bases, but mainly the Greek Cypriots and other European citizens living here.
That is true indeed, and I'm glad you clarified that, because when we talk about British bases in Cyprus, they are not just some military um, um, buildings and staff that man them, the residential area where they live. The British bases in Cyprus occupy 3% of the island, and that in that 3%, they're incorporated tens of villages, small towns, and we're talking about thousands of Cypriots who live within the jurisdiction of what is known as British bases in Cyprus. Speaking about the Greek deployment, this development has raised concerns here. Is that Greece's deployment of the frigates and the fighter jets to Cyprus, will it trigger Turkey, which has occupied the northern part of Cyprus with the 40,000 troops since its military invasion of the island in 1974, controlling about 38% of the territory? Many Cypriots are concerned about how Turkey might react, and some are wondering, whether Athens would make such a move without first consulting the United States and perhaps even informing Turkey indirectly.
My information is that the United States already gave the green light to the Greek military forces to be deployed in Cyprus. This is the first point. The second point is Turkey still occupying Cyprus, and therefore, how can Turkey articulate about its concern? The concern is not on the Turkish Cypriots, but the concern is on the Greek Cypriots suffering from the occupation. And the Greek military forces is here because we need to feel safe and because we have the right of self-defense as we are under attack. So it is not something between Greek and Turkey or Cyprus and Turkey. It is a matter of collective security, which means that the United States and its allies want to protect a whole region from the Iranian attacks.
Okay. Dr. Charalambides, something else that may go unnoticed by international audiences is that several very high-level meetings have taken place in Cyprus in just the last few days. Something very unusual for a small country and an island like us. And just for context, for the viewers, The UK Defence Secretary John Healey met his Cypriot counterpart Vasilis Palmas in Nicosia on Thursday, the 5th of March. Greece's defense minister was also in Nicosia, Nikos Dendias. He arrived with Greece's military top brass to coordinate on the defense planning on Tuesday, the 3rd of March. And President Christodoulidis is scheduled as we speak to meet today, Friday, the 6th of March, with in Nicosia with the MI6 chief Blaise Metriweli. So when you see defense ministers, military chiefs, and intelligence heads all suddenly arriving on this island in the Eastern Mediterranean, what does that tell you about how seriously the situation around Cyprus is being viewed behind the scenes?
The first thing I can see is how important is Cyprus from geopolitical and geostrategic point of view. So we should know how to treat all these things happening around us. And I think that it is something natural that the Greek Ministry of Defense and the British are here in Cyprus because they both have military forces and they have to coordinate themselves with the Republic of Cyprus. Both these, they are also guarantors of Cyprus. And therefore, they have the duty to be here to defend the British military forces on the one hand, the Cypriots, the Greek Cypriots on the other. And I can tell you something honestly, through the whole procedure we're living now, we can protect also in the Turkish Cypriot because we don't know whether a missile or a drone is going to be fallen. Okay, so we protect the whole island. So Turkey has no reason to concern about all these forces, and particularly the Greek military forces based now in Cyprus or have been deployed now in Cyprus.
Okay. So let me ask you something that maybe has not become clear to people around the world. When the Iranian linked drone struck the British bases in Cyprus beginning of the week, this marked the first time that this war physically struck a European territory. Yes, Doctor? So if European jets or if the European jets and frigates that are now deployed here were to be struck next, what would that effectively mean? Iran striking a second European nation and potentially a third NATO member within the expanding Israel-America-Iran conflict? What would that mean? It's very significant.
The Iranians
it's already
are in a
struck European territory.
Yes. The first that we should clarify that the military British bases, they enjoy let's say, conventional sovereignty, which means that they have legal power deriving from the treaties of establishment of the Republic of Cyprus. Around the military British bases, we do not apply the British law, but in accordance with the agreement between the Republic of Cyprus and the United Kingdom during the Brexit, we still implement and put in practice, let's say, the European law. However, the whole islands, it is not only the British bases. We are very lucky because this drone struck only the military British bases, which is a British sovereign territory. We don't know yesterday or the day after whether the Iranians, by targeting the military British bases, at the end of the day, a missile is going to strike Limassol or Nicosia. So you are absolutely right that it is not only the British military bases which are under attack, but the whole island and the European Union, since Cyprus has the presidency of the European Union, representing, in fact, the whole EU. I hope that it is clear.
It's clear. It's clear. And by striking the British bases, they've also struck a second NATO member. They've struck a NATO member. A second war.
Of course, they strike a NATO member, but it is a common secret that the United States leading the NATO, but it is not a conflict between NATO and Iran. It is a conflict between, there is no, from the legal point of view, let's say, there is no legal decision issued by NATO
Yes.
to get involved in this war. However, the Iranians are considering that each Western place where can be used or can potentially be used by the US and its allies, EU member states or NATO member states, is for them a legitimated target.
Target. Exactly. So you're leading
Many
me now.
times,
Tell me.
many times, the president of Cyprus explained, clarified the international community, even to the Iranians, that we don't want to get involved in this conflict. However, since the British bases lie in Cyprus, we have no choice.
Even if we ask
We
them
have
don't
no
use the
choice. So
bases,
we should defend ourselves. And Article 51 of the UN Charter is very clear that when a state is under attack, and of course, the Security Council of the UN cannot protect it, which has the legal power to keep the regional and global system instability in peace, it is a duty for a state to defend itself. And since we have no all the capabilities of defending ourselves, this is why we were seeking from the others, and especially Greece, who is a guarantor of Cyprus, and the British as well, to support and protect the Republic of Cyprus.
Doctor, I want to go
I hope
back
that it is
to-
clear.
It's clear. It's very clear, and we have to make it clear, Doctor. We have to make this clear. I want to go back to you mentioning Iran and how it considers legitimate targets. So I want to go to that. Iran's
It is
warning
not,
about
sorry,
this-
it is not legitimate target in accordance with the international law.
No, to them.
Legitimate target, for them.
Yes. So I want to go back to that because the warning was also made publicly very recently. Iran warned about Cyprus becoming a target when there were televised statements by the IRGC General Sardar Jabari. He warned that 70 to 80% of the U.S. aircraft that had been relocated from the U.S. bases of Kuwait, Qatar, the UAE, and Iraq, they had relocated these aircrafts, the Americans, to facilities in Cyprus. He mentioned 3 bases in Cyprus. He didn't mention them by name, but he said in 3 bases in Cyprus. And he warned that Cyprus will now become a potential target for us. So what is your assessment of these very serious and worrisome statements coming from the Iranian Revolutionary Guard at the highest level?
We have to be taught from this lesson.
Yes.
I mean that we should have the military capability to react better, which means that we should not in the future wait only from the British to defend their bases and the whole island. This is the
But
first.
Doctor, have the Americans moved 70 to 80% of their aircraft from their bases in the Gulf countries to Cyprus?
The second is what is proving now, that realism is teaching us how important is the unified military space between Cyprus and Greece, reaching also to Israel. The question is the following: will you keep alive this alliance after this crisis, or to consider that it was only something imposed by what's happening around? This is the dilemma for us. My personal opinion is the lesson is that we need to cover any gap existing in our defense system. And that Cyprus cannot, because it's a small island, should become a member state of NATO and should enjoy also full support of Greece as it is under for the Turkish occupation, under the auspices of the United States of America, to whom we offer the military bases of Andreas Papandreou, and now we are suffering because of the British bases and because we are very generous as we offer our military bases to the Americans. Is it clear?
So it's clear. So you're with this statement. We're also you're also stating that his
So
statements were true.
if the Turks, they have some objections on this, then the first thing that they should do is to start pulling out their troops from Cyprus, and then to sit and find a solution, because we don't see and to see a new crisis, particularly with the Turks in our region. So we call the Americans as the hegemonic power here to allow us, to protect us, to become stronger, not because we wish to attack Turkish troops or the Turkish Cypriot, but because we want to defend ourselves and because we want to live with the Turkish Cypriots in the context of a solution based on the principles and values of the EU, without Turkish troops, Greek troops, or even the Americans and the British troops.
No foreign troops.
So
Understood.
my point is very clear, that I don't want to see the next crisis in our region to be between Greeks, and Turks. So
you want
since
the
the Turkish
to be
troops,
demilitarized.
I'm not sure about whether the island can be militarized or not, because demilitarized or not, because we have a role to play. If we decided to demilitarize the island, maybe we will continue to be under the Turkish influence. And it is something that nobody wants. For example, we prefer the Americans instead of the Turks. And I prefer what? NATO. I mean, we can be partners in the context of NATO. So we should decide what kind of troops we can deploy here in Cyprus, Greek Cypriots and Turkish Cypriots, with the NATO troops. Because if we are partners, there is no threat. Or the the United States might be the guarantor. Why? Because the Americans have the power.
Yes. It's understood.
We should be realist.
This is a scenario that should be looked into for the future of a solution to Cyprus. But Doctor, please, can you tell me, if his statements were true, have 70 to 80% of the U.S. aircraft that were based in the Gulf, the U.S. bases in the Gulf countries, have they been moved to Cyprus? To your knowledge, the best of your knowledge.
we don't afford such a power to be based on Cyprus.
Because we need the message to go out clear to them.
No. I think it's obvious. And there is no need for them. This is why.
Which means he meant the two bases of the British, Akrotiri and the Keia, and then the third base he must be meaning Andreas Papandreou. So can we send
listen, Andreas Papandreou, it's not such a huge military basis in which such a huge US forces can be based on. No, this is not true.
All right. Now, another question I want to pose to you, because it's another very crucial topic that we need to get clarity on, us as locals, but also I assume the people who want to harm us here in the area. It's about nuclear weapons. So for decades, there have been persistent reports and concerns among the Cypriot population that the British base at Akrotiri may host as many as 56 nuclear weapons, potentially making it one of the largest nuclear storage locations in the region. So these concerns exist partly because the Republic of Cyprus has no authority or visibility over what is stored inside the British sovereign base areas on the island. Are such concerns grounded in reality, Doctor? Because many Brits
Maybe.
fear that this could be the real reason why so many European powers, France, Italy, Spain, the Netherlands, are deploying frigates, jets, and air defense systems, and even an aircraft carrier around Cyprus.
I think the first military forces that should be deployed around Cyprus if the British military bases host such missiles, I mean nuclear heads, will be the British, correct? As you mentioned, a warship is coming in 15 days.
In a week.
So do
But we
in a
know
week, in a week,
they
in a
have huge
week.
problems. Their military is under severe
Yes,
budget constraints these last few years. They have problems.
yes, that's it. In a week is going to leave from Britain.
Yes, you're
So
right.
how
Yes.
many days need to be here? Okay, this
Okay.
is the first. So the first that should guarantee from such a strike were the British, correct? These concerns coming from the Cold War, maybe during
Yes,
the Cold War,
they originated
Cyprus,
from then. Yes.
the originated from them. But now, I'm not sure that the British host nuclear heads.
Okay.
I don't think so.
Okay.
Besides, Incirlik is the place which is
In
well
Turkey.
known that the Americans, the
In
Americans
Turkey.
in Turkey, I think they host nuclear heads,
Okay.
not Cyprus. So it is not for Cyprus to defend the British military forces. Uh, on the other hand, the first that should come to support the British military bases, I think that will be the Americans, correct? They would not waiting for the others coming in Cyprus after 10 days, getting into the second phase of the war. From the very first moment, the Americans was the first say, and they lead these military operations, should take all the measures about protecting military bases in Cyprus if they are afraid of a strike against nuclear
Nuclear.
weapons.
Okay, Doctor, another issue raising concern is that more than 10,000 pro regime Iranians are reportedly residing in the Turkish occupied north of Cyprus, while Hamas is said to maintain representation structures and even student networks there. So, given the current escalation, how possible is it that Iran could attempt to attack the Western military targets that are stationed in and around Cyprus? Could attempt to attack them indirectly from within the occupied territories of the island?
Always there is a risk of threat deriving from the occupied part of Cyprus. But I think that the Iranians, if they want to strike, there are many other places much more important for them to spread terror. Cyprus, it's not important for them as, for example, is New York, Paris, or somewhere else. Furthermore, we should underline that our secret services, I want to believe that they are in a very good, they have a very good connections with the Americans and the British and the others, that they were watching very carefully the situation.
Okay. So, Doctor, I want to reach our final question for viewers who may not still be familiar with Cyprus. This island, it sits between Israel, Lebanon, Syria, and Turkey, right at the crossroads of the Middle East and Europe. So, when we look at everything happening at once, European warships arriving, air defense systems being deployed, fighter jets stationed on the island, high-level defense and intelligence coordination taking place here, and warnings from Iran that Cyprus will become a target. Are we now witnessing Cyprus potentially becoming the next geopolitical hotspot of this expanding war? And if that were to happen, what would it mean not only for Europe but also for the US?
Because of this situation now, we feel much more secure than 3 or 4 days before. Is it clear? So there is no reason.
Please.
Explain that, because all these military forces have been gathered here. They offer us what? Why they came here? Why they are coming here? To protect us. So we should feel much more secure than in the past. This is the first. The other one is that we are not the first front of the war. We have no borders with Iran. So there is no reason about any huge concern. There is an amazing now defending umbrella, preventive umbrella, intercepting everything, incoming missiles or drones. Of course, maybe something can, pass through. But we hope that with all these forces concentrated here, we are going to avoid it. So my point is the following, that we feel now much more secure than 3 or 4 days ago, and we are going to feel much better in the next few days because of all this concentration and because of the B2 are going to strike the underground infrastructures of Iran. So I hope that the threat is going to be minimized day to day.
Doctor, I'm getting word now. I don't know, it maybe didn't reach you yet. That Greece. Did you hear of it? Greece is expanding its role as a regional security provider. Athens would deploy a Patriot missile defense system and F-16 fighter jets to help its northern neighbor Bulgaria and ally strengthen air defense amid concerns over potential Iranian threats. The Greek Ministry of Defense confirmed about the two F-16s that they will be stationed at a northern Greek airbase with the mission of providing additional air protection for EU ally Bulgaria. Bulgaria? The war is between Iran and Israel and the US.
I don't know. I'm not be aware about this, but it is not something which is relevant to the war in Iran. Maybe this might be relevant with the war in Ukraine.
Well, okay. I mean, the news pop-up I have here is that it's amid concerns over potential Iranian threats. So let's give it some time to simmer and we'll see. Doctor, thank you for your insight and for helping our viewers understand what's really unfolding around Cyprus and for clarifying a lot of things that possibly people in Iran might have in their mind about us that needed clarification. Thank you.
We hope that all these things happening for a good reason, okay? And that stability and peace is going to be consolidated in the region, and that we minimize all the chances for a new conflict in the region and war.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
To everyone watching, thank you for being here. When I started broadcasting from the Eastern Mediterranean just over a year ago, I never imagined that we'd already be approaching 10,000 subscribers. And the fact that so many of you are watching from the United States means a great deal to me. It's powerful to see people actively looking for perspectives beyond the mainstream Western narrative. I've always had a soft spot for the US. I still fondly remember my days studying there. So if you found this conversation valuable, subscribe, tap the bell, and share this interview with friends and family who want the real story behind the headlines. This is the only English language woman-led geopolitical interview platform broadcasting from the Eastern Mediterranean. So help this voice reach further. Thank you for watching.